Wonderful. That's great. Well, thanks everyone. So we're now because Olga has to be involved in another presentation. We're now going to come into what would have been my introductory remarks, which I'll keep fairly short because we're going to do one of the pieces of feedback we've had from previous sessions is that everybody really enjoys the breakout sessions where they get to meet new people. And so we've actually built a couple of breakout sessions, a couple of longer breakout sessions into our schedule for today. So I just wanted to touch on a few things that have happened recently. There have been a number of reports published, primarily in the UK, although I've seen some coming out of the US, that are just showing the update on statistics and things that are happening in this marketplace. One of the most powerful ones was a report that was published on performance in the UK and fundraising in the UK by the gender of teams. And it came out from Bowhurst. It was the subject of a LinkedIn article that I wrote, so some of you may have seen that in my LinkedIn feed. But it was looking at the level of funding in Q1 of 2021, which absolutely shot up astronomically compared with Q1 of 2020, which obviously was partially impacted by the beginning of the pandemic. But the most interesting and powerful thing was that the graph went almost vertical for male-founded teams. The graph was sharply upwards for mixed gender teams, and that was driven primarily by two very large deals, one of £254 million by Starling Bank, which is one of the leading UK fintech banks with a female founder. Well, it's a mixed gender team, but Anne Bowden is the female founder. I'm trying to find a way into her because I'd love to interview her or get her on one of our future events to tell her story. She's a phenomenal entrepreneur who's written a really good book about how she's shaken up the banking industry. And the other one was from a tech R&D business. I'm sorry, I've forgotten the name, but they raised 210 million. So there were these two large deals that kind of skewed the thing for mixed gender teams. But the graph of the female founders was flat along the bottom. So there's still really big issues here. And we're just not seeing the uptake in funding going forward with female founders. So we're going to keep on fighting the fight for fairer funding. And we're committed to this. We're actually increasing our time and resources on focusing on where we want to take funding focus. And you know, this event being held in the morning UK time so that it's at a more acceptable time for people in Southeast Asia and Australia. And I see we have some people from Australia online, which is great. So welcome and wonderful to have you here. The other thing I want to touch on is based around the racial minorities. And again, it's information that's come out recently in the UK. There was a report called the Cornerstone Report. And again, that was picked up on in a recent LinkedIn article. If you want to read more, there was also, I was published in Diversity Q, which is an online magazine. So if you go to diversityq.com and just search for my name, you can pick up the report in there. But it was looking at the racial diversity of investments in the UK during 2020. And it's one of the very few reports that I've found that's actually looking at racial diversity. And again, we're seeing the same issues. So they were looking particularly at London and the rest of the UK and looking at population trends. And within London, I think it was 13% of the population of London was Black, and yet only 3% of the funding in London in this particular period went to Black founders. Even starker statistics for Asian founders. So there's a real challenge there. And I'm hoping to find research similar to this in other parts of the world. I have seen a few pieces in America that's looking at the ratio of investments into Black and Latinx in particular, but that's I haven't found anything that's come out recently that's addressing the situation this year. But within Funding Focus, we've just taken 2 people on in our team. They're actually on the call. Drew and Jacob have just joined us. So we're upping our resource to work on researching this and gathering in more information. I think as well, for those of you who were on our Q1 call, I may have mentioned this before, but I am in the middle of writing my second book, which is going to be all about this whole issue around funding focus. It's probably 2/3 written, and I've written the easy part. The harder part is coming. I've spoken with someone who I hope is going to write the foreword to the book, and she has challenged me to think a little bit bigger and more broadly in terms of social and political and economic change that needs to happen in order to drive this forward. So I'm working through that. I'm still hoping to have the book published this year. So please watch out for that as that comes out. But that's just kind of an introduction to where we are. And normally this would have happened before Olga, but because of Olga's commitment on time, we had to just rejig the timetable.